I watched her cry in that dingy corner of the library, and the lump in my throat was not one of pity, but of a silent guilt I had carried for years, an ancestral debt that weighed on every fiber of my being. It was Anna. Her shoulders were shaking, her face was hidden in her hands, and the dim light from the lamp revealed the coffee stain that someone had deliberately spilled on her recently rented books. It was the kind of petty humiliation typical of an elite school like ours, where a person's worth was measured by the shine of their car or the brand of their backpack. I, Lucas, the heir to a financial empire, with cars I never drove and backpacks I never really used, was part of that world. But in that moment, the darkest part of me struggled. My life was a spectacle of staged normality, a theater of invisible luxury. I arrived at school in a discreet Uber. My clothes were expensive but discreet, and my behavior was that of an ordinary student, dedicated to my studies and indifferent to rich cliques. My friends, if you could call those who gravitated toward my good catch aura that talked about trips to Mykonos and shopping in Milan. I, on the other hand, spent my nights reading financial reports disguised as textbooks, and my weekends in secret meetings, orchestrating moves on the global capital board. It was a well-staged farce. The mansion where I lived was huge, cold, and echoed with the absence of parents who were always more present at council meetings than in my life. I had everything that money could buy, and I felt the void that it couldn't fill. The break in this normality for me came not with a grand event, but with a growing pain, a silent fissure that opened years before, when my mother, on her deathbed, whispered a secret that rewrote my entire existence. "Lucas," she had murmured, her voice weak, "you have a sister. Find her. Protect her. She is your blood, your true family." The search for Anna, the half-sister my father had disowned from a previous marriage, and whom my mother, in an act of guilt and belated redemption, had tracked down, had become my secret mission. Finding her at that school, thanks to a chance orchestrated by my lawyers and detectives, was a shock. Seeing her suffer, as she suffered at that moment in the library, was the hardest part. I knew who the culprits were: the Valadares brothers, always accompanied by their minions. They were the masters of truth in this microcosm of privilege, and the contempt for Anna, for her scholarship and her simple clothes, was palpable. I took a deep breath, feeling my pulse quicken. I couldn't let that go unpunished, but I also couldn't expose my game. I got up from my desk, a few aisles away, and slowly walked toward her, the smell of coffee mixed with the musty smell of old books. When I got close, with false indifference, I picked up a stack of books from my own teaching material and accidentally dropped them, right in front of the Valadares' table, causing a loud noise that made everyone silent. The Valadares looked at me angrily, but I looked back at them with the cold expression I had learned in the company corridors. "Problems, brothers?" I asked in a calm voice, but filled with an authority that they didn't expect from me, the good student who never got into trouble. The oldest, Pedro Valadares, a brute with a face covered in pimples and a watch the size of a car, raised an eyebrow. "No problem, Lucas. Just a show of strength." His eyes shifted to Anna, who was still crying, now more contained. I knew what he meant. They were showing Anna who was boss. That lit a fire inside me. The moral problem appeared there, clear and cruel. I had the power to crush them, to ruin their families, to expose them to the shame Anna was feeling. But doing so directly would compromise my mission. It would put Anna in the spotlight in a way she might not be able to handle, and my identity would be questioned. The injustice was blatant, the wrong decision, which I already felt had been made by our family for years, materialized there, in that act of bullying. I had to protect Anna, but how? Without revealing that I was his brother, that I was the billionaire behind the facade. It was a fine line, a dilemma that had haunted me since I discovered its existence. The weight of knowing that I lived in a world of abundance while she fought for every crumb, that I had a household name that was denied to her, was excruciating. The anger I felt toward the Valadares was just an echo of the anger I felt toward my own family, and in part, toward myself, over the whole charade. I helped Anna collect her books, ignoring the Valadares. Our hands touched for an instant, and a strange electricity ran through me. She raised her face, her eyes swollen and red, but with a dignity that impressed me. "Thank you, Lucas," she whispered, her voice hoarse. I just nodded, heart pounding. At that moment, I knew that my normal life as an undercover observant billionaire student was over. I would have to act. From that day on, my life would be dedicated to protecting her, whatever the cost, but without her knowing the truth behind my interest. Since that day in the library, I started monitoring Anna with an almost obsessive intensity. It wasn't just my dying mother's order, it was a need that came from the depths of my soul. I felt connected to her in a way I had never felt with anyone else. My friends thought I was interested in her romantically, and I didn't do anything to deny it, as it served perfectly as a cover for my true intentions. It was easier to be seen as the rich kid interested in the scholarship girl than as the secret brother with a hidden agenda. I started to design small coincidences that could make her life easier, without her noticing my hand behind her. For example, I ensured that the mathematics teacher, Madame Dubois, a woman with a secret passion for gourmet coffees, received regular packages of her favorite coffee, delivered anonymously, always with a note asking for extra attention to students in financial difficulties. And not by chance, Anna always received extra help, free tutoring sessions, and a more understanding look from the teacher. I also discovered that Anna had transportation issues. She lived far away, in a neighborhood on the outskirts, and took 2 buses to get to school. What did I do? I sponsored, under the name of an anonymous foundation, the purchase of a school van for her neighborhood, on the condition that she prioritized students from our school who lived in the region. Anna, naturally, was one of the first to benefit, without connecting the dots. She was perceptive, but also so used to fighting for every small achievement that she accepted good luck as gifts of fate, not as the maneuvers of a secret brother. My routine became a complex dance of dissimulation. In the morning, I was Lucas, the indifferent student. At night, I was the strategist, the silent guardian. I once followed Anna after school. She didn't go home. Instead, I watched her enter a simple diner near the bus station. Through the fogged glass, I saw her putting on an apron and starting to clean tables, then serve coffee. She was exhausted, her eyes were heavy, but she moved with a dignity that broke my soul. The image of her, washing dishes with hands that should have been holding books, reignited a silent fury in me. Micro-tag. At that moment, a flash came to my mind. A fragmented memory, a park swing, a child's laugh. It was so vivid and fleeting that it left me with bated breath. I was sure it was Anna. That memory, squeezed from some forgotten compartment of my childhood, gave me the visceral certainty that it was not just a duty, but an undeniable blood bond. The pain of injustice mixed with the regret of lost years. Why had my father hidden this from me? Why did my mother wait until the end to tell me? The whirlwind of emotions hit me hard. Anna, on the other hand, began to notice my presence more frequently. Our eyes met in the corridors, in the canteen. She was cautious, almost suspicious, but I saw a spark of curiosity in her. Our interactions were brief and formal, a hasty, "Good morning," a nod. I kept my distance, fearing that any closer approach might expose my cover or worse, make her feel like an object of charity. One day in the cafeteria, I heard a group of girls laughing loudly. They talked about Anna's clothes, how she smelled like a bus, and the old notebooks she used. The gratuitous evil made my stomach turn. I got up, pretending to go get more juice, and accidentally bumped into the tray of one of them, a preppy girl named Larissa, who was in the middle of the cruelest sentence. Grape juice flew, dyeing her designer blouse a vibrant purple. Micro-trigger. Larissa screamed in indignation. I, in the most innocent voice I could forge, apologized profusely, offering him a tissue. She looked at me with hatred, but she couldn't accuse me openly because I was the good student Lucas. The scene made the others stop laughing, and Anna looked at me from afar, with a complex expression of surprise and gratitude. I shrugged at Larissa and returned to my table, feeling a bitter taste in my mouth. This was my life now. Protecting Anna from the shadows, using indirect and often painful tactics for my own conscience. I began to investigate Anna's past in depth, consulting the files that my mother had given me. Zed and the detective's reports. I confirmed every detail, his date of birth, his mother's name, which was not mine, the hospital where he was born, the small house where he lived. With each new piece of information, the weight of my mission became heavier, more urgent. She was, without a shadow of a doubt, my sister. The sister my father had abandoned, the sister I never knew I had. The knowledge that she had grown up in such unfavorable conditions while I was swimming in privileges gnawed at me. I felt a growing anger towards my father, who, out of pride or cowardice, denied the existence of his own daughter. My dilemma deepened. How to build a bridge for her, without her feeling humiliated, without her knowing the farce of my life. And if it were you, would you have the courage to pretend that you don't see someone's pain, even though you know that you are part of the cause? This question was playing in my mind as I saw her, on the other side of the cafeteria, eating her simple lunch, alone. The responsibility I felt for Anna was overwhelming, and I was exhausted from watching her struggle so much. My mind, trained from an early age to find financial solutions to complex problems, began to scheme. I needed to get her out of that situation without her suspecting it. The idea of an anonymous scholarship emerged as the perfect solution. It was a clean way out, I thought. A way to secure her future without me having to expose myself or her feeling indebted to me personally. I prepared the strategy with the precision of a surgeon. I created a fictitious foundation based in another state, specializing in supporting low-income emerging talent. With the help of my trusted lawyer, Dr. Guilherme, a discreet and loyal man who knew my entire secret, I orchestrated for the foundation to make an offer of a full scholarship to Anna, covering not only tuition fees, but also housing, food, and a small monthly stipend. The offer seemed to come from heaven, a gift from the universe to a dedicated student. I monitored every step, every email, every document. When Anna received the acceptance letter with the elegant fake foundation logo, I saw her face light up. She didn't know that I was the architect of that miracle. Turn 2. False exit. At that moment, I felt immense relief. I believed I had resolved the situation. Anna would be removed from that toxic environment. She would have the opportunity to study at one of the best universities in the country, and I would have fulfilled my promise to my mother without my sister knowing the truth behind our broken family. It was a triumph of my logic, of my ability to manipulate. I believed I had found the perfect way out, a way to protect Anna without the pain and complications of a family reunion that seemed, to me, impossible to manage. For a few days, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I saw her in the hallways with a different sparkle in her eyes, a lightness that didn't exist before. She even came to thank me, thinking that I had helped her with some group work. "Lucas, thank you so much for your help with the project. I think I'll get a good grade, and that's great for my college record," she said, with a genuine smile that disarmed me. My heart sank. She was so close to the truth, yet so far away. I just smiled back, a forced smile that hid the whirlwind of emotions inside me. Still, the feeling that something was missing, that the solution was only partial, began to bother me. I had solved the financial problem, but not the emotional one. She remained alone, isolated in a world of privilege where, even with the scholarship, she was seen as an outsider. Money didn't buy a family, it didn't fill the void. One day I received a call from Donna Lucia, my mother's housekeeper, a woman who had taken care of me since I was a baby and who knew Anna's secret. Microtag. "Mr. Lucas," she said, her voice breaking, "your mother didn't just want the girl to have money. She wanted you to meet, for her to know she had a brother, a family." Her words were a punch to the gut. I had focused so much on the practical part of the promise, on the money, that I had forgotten the essence, what really mattered to my mother, the connection, the blood bond. My solution suddenly seemed empty and cold. I was just postponing the inevitable, prolonging Anna's loneliness and, in a way, my own. My mother didn't want me to be an anonymous benefactor, but a brother. I felt like a failure. The emotional distance between us was still an abyss. I watched her, knowing her dreams, her fears, her hopes, but she knew nothing about me, my burden, our history. She thrived in her studies, with the help of the scholarship, but the joy in her eyes was still tinged with a latent sadness, a kind of resignation. She was grateful, yes, but she still carried the weight of a life of abandonment. I would see her sitting alone in the canteen or studying late in the library, and as much as I wanted to get closer, an irrational fear stopped me. Fear of rejection, fear of exposing the truth and causing more pain, fear that she would never forgive me for all the charade, for all the wasted time. The luxury of my own life began to suffocate me even more. Every gourmet meal, every weekend trip I turned down to avoid attracting attention, every empty conversation with my colleagues became a cruel reminder of the life Anna was forced to lead. The scholarship, which I believed would be my redemption, now seemed like just a superficial bandage for a deep wound. I had thought that money would solve everything, but it had only created a new layer of dissimulation between us. I helped her escape poverty, but not loneliness, not the feeling of being an outsider in a world that didn't want her. The false solution brought me false peace, and the real battle, the battle for our connection, was yet to come. My mother's ghost, with her last request, haunted me. I had failed in the most important part of his mission. Restlessness was growing in me, a feeling that the truth, however painful it was, needed to come out. My anonymous scholarship solution was, in essence, cowardice. I was hiding behind money, avoiding the emotional confrontation my mother had asked me to do. I searched my father's study, a sanctuary untouched since his recent death. He had died without ever confessing to me about Anna, taking the secret to the grave. Among old papers, property records, and dusty documents, I found a mahogany box hidden at the bottom of a safe. Inside, there were personal belongings of my mother that I had never seen. A silk scarf with her perfume still faintly present, a book of poems with notes in her handwriting, and at the bottom, a yellowed envelope. Inside the envelope, a small, faded photograph. Extra narrative block. In the photo, I was a baby, maybe 2 years old, smiling and holding the hand of another child, a girl. She must have been a few months old, cuddled in our mother's lap, who was smiling at the camera. On the back of the photo, in delicate handwriting, my mother's words, "Forever my 2 sons, never forget each other, 1999. The year 1999. Anna was born in 1999. That was her. Me, my brother, and our mother." At that moment, the image was a punch in the gut. I remembered the fragments of memory that haunted me, the rocking, the laughter, the feeling of a small hand in mine. They weren't ghosts. They were real memories of an erased past, of a sister that my father had stolen from us, of a bond that had been brutally broken. My mother knew. She had kept that photo, a silent proof of our connection, of our family. That worn piece of paper, more than any detective report, more than any legal document, was irrefutable proof that Anna was my sister, part of me. The loneliness of my own childhood, the constant absence of my parents, the cold walls of the mansion, all took on a new and painful meaning. I wasn't just keeping a promise, I was reclaiming a part of myself that had been stolen. Anna faced a new challenge, and this time, my anonymous help wasn't enough. An envious student, daughter of an influential judge, accused Anna of plagiarism in a literature work, forging evidence. It was a cruel trap, destined to destroy his reputation and, consequently, his scholarship. The school board, pressured by the other students' parents, was about to suspend Anna, which would ruin her future. I couldn't let that happen. I had to act directly. I used my contacts, activated lawyers specializing in student law, and under the cover of a pro bono lawyer recommended by one of the teachers, who I myself had suggested, we managed to prove Anna's innocence. The financial cost was negligible for me, but the exposure was greater than I would have liked. Microtag. The accusing student's father, a judge with an inflated ego, tried to use his influence to hush up the case, but my lawyers, with my permission, revealed some of her questionable financial dealings, information that I had in my possession thanks to my extensive resources. The pressure was instantaneous. The judge backed down, his daughter was reprimanded, and Anna was acquitted. But something changed. Anna was not a fool. She knew that this type of advocacy did not come out of nowhere, nor was it merely pro bono. She noticed the way I moved, the ease with which my contacts solved problems that would seem insurmountable to an average student. His eyes, once suspicious, now carried a new intensity. Turn 3. The truth comes out, reversing roles. One day, Anna approached me after class, when leaving school. Io. She wasn't crying or helpless. She was furious, with a dignity that made me tremble. "Lucas," she said, her voice low but filled with suppressed anger. "I know I'm not naive. I know the lawyer, the scholarship, didn't come from some random foundation. I know it came from you." My heart raced. She had discovered me. The truth that I had worked so hard to hide was there, exposed in his eyes. I tried to stammer out an excuse. Something about the foundation being real, about my interest in helping talented students. But she cut me off. "Don't lie to me, Lucas. I'm poor, but I'm not stupid. I investigated. This foundation, it has ties to your family's business group. The names of the directors, the addresses, everything leads to you. She handed me a folder with newspaper clippings, website prints, printed reports. She had traced the connections, piece by piece, with the persistence of someone with nothing to lose. My facade crumbled. Our roles have reversed. I, the silent protector, the invisible benefactor, now stood naked before her, exposed as the liar that I was. She was the one seeking the truth, and I was to blame for hiding it. The blow was hard, more than any bullying the Validaries could have inflicted. I was no longer the hero, but the villain, the billionaire with his calculated help, his disguised pity. At that moment, I realized that money, which I believed to be my greatest protection tool, had become the biggest obstacle between us. The weight of the secret, of my lifetime of privilege contrasting with her life of struggle, crushed me. The confrontation with Anna was a watershed. The silence that followed his accusations was deafening, filled only by the pounding of my own panicked heart. His eyes, once tired, now burned with an intensity that stripped me bare. I tried to speak, but the words stuck in my throat. The truth was too heavy a stone to swallow all at once. Anna, I began, my voice trailing off. It's not like you think. I wanted to help you. She laughed, a bitter, joyless laugh. Help? You wanted to help me, Lucas? Or did you want to clear your conscience? Protect me from what? From the truth? From your own family? Her words hit me like stabs. She was right. I had acted out of guilt, out of a sense of duty imposed by my mother, but also out of a selfish desire to fix things without having to deal with the emotional mess. I took a deep breath, feeling the heavy air in my lungs. There was nowhere else to run. The secret that had accompanied me since my mother's death had to be revealed. I looked at her, my eyes teary, feeling the raw pain of years of silence. Anna, please listen to me. I'm your brother. The sentence hung in the air like a tightrope. The shock on her face was palpable, her eyes wide, her mouth slightly open. What? She whispered, her voice barely audible. I started talking, running over words, telling everything. The revelation of my mother on her deathbed, the search for her, the details about our father, who had remarried after divorcing her mother, and the cruel decision to simply erase Anna from his life, from my life. I talked about the promise I made to my mother, the need to protect her, to make up for the injustices, the abandonment she suffered while I grew up in a bubble of privilege. The tears were streaming down my face, and I didn't care if anyone saw us there, on the school sidewalk, breaking down. Anna listened, at first in shock, then with growing fury. Tears also began to flow down her face, not from sadness, but from anger and betrayal. So, all my difficulties, all my life of struggle, was because our father abandoned me? And you, the great heir, knew this all along and only came to help me now, when your mother asked? You hid behind bags and lawyers, pretending to be a guardian angel, when in fact, you are part of the problem. Her words were cruel but fair. I felt the depth of my failure, the way my wealth and my need for control had blinded me to her true pain. Turn 4. Protagonist realizes his own failure. I realized that trying to fix her life with money, with anonymous gestures, with disguised protection, had been a colossal mistake. I had focused on the material solution, ignoring the emotional wound. I was trying to protect the Anna I thought she was, the Anna who needed rescuing, and not the real Anna, the strong, resilient woman who, above all, needed the truth and a real brother. My privilege did not give me the wisdom to deal with the complexity of the situation. On the contrary, it made me arrogant, thinking that money could fill any gap, heal any pain. I hadn't just hidden the truth, I had perpetuated the lie, and this caused more pain. The price of my protection was her trust. I needed her truth and her forgiveness, more than she needed my money. I had failed in the most important part of my mother's promise, human connection, sisterly love. She raised her hand, showing me a small silver locket, worn from time and constant touching. Micro tag. I've been using this for as long as I can remember, she said, her voice cracking with emotion. My mother gave it to me. She said it was so I would never forget who I was, and that I would always have a family somewhere. She opened the locket with her fingernail. Inside, a tiny photograph, faded and almost unrecognizable. A smiling woman and 2 children, blurred, but undeniably a boy and a girl. It was the same photo I had found in my father's safe. My mother. Both of us. The sight of that medallion, that proof so simple and so powerful, broke me. It was visual confirmation of our connection, of our lost history, of our mother's love who, even in her absence, had kept us connected. I broke down, kneeling right there in front of her, tears flowing freely. The weight of all those years of loneliness, of secrecy, of regret came to the surface. I had found Anna. I had tried to protect her, but I had hurt her even more with my cowardice. Have you also tried to buy forgiveness, thinking that money would heal wounds that only the truth can touch? It was my pain, my guilt there, exposed in public, without filters. And Anna watched me, not with pity, but with the fury and sadness of someone who finally understands the magnitude of a betrayal. Block 6. My confession and the display of Anna's locket left us in a limbo of raw emotions. I, kneeling, tears blurring my vision, and she, standing, fury and pain mixed on her face. The silence was so thick, it seemed to crush the air around us. I was desperate. The image of my mother, smiling in the photograph Anna carried, haunted my mind. That wasn't why she asked me to meet her. Not so that I would hurt her even more with my lies and half-truths. Anna, please, I begged, reaching out to her. She took a step back, rejection clear in her gesture. Don't touch me. Do you think you can just show up, drop a bomb on my life and everything will be fine? Do you think the money you spent on me will erase the years I spent wondering why my father abandoned me? Why didn't I have a family? His words like fire burned my skin. I stood up, wiping away my tears with the palm of my hand. There was no hiding anything anymore. I had to strip away all my facade, all my protection. You're absolutely right, I said, my voice hoarse with emotion. I was a coward. I should have told you everything from the beginning. I didn't want to hurt you, but by trying to protect you from our father, I hurt you even more. I'm sorry, Anna. I'm sorry for everything. It was my internal conflict at its peak. The dilemma was inevitable. I could continue to use my power and fortune to fix her life, which she clearly resented, or I could break down all my walls, risk my own future and my position, and connect with her as a brother, acknowledging our father's mistakes and my own. It was no longer a question of money or power. It was a question of conscience, of brotherly love, of forgiveness. The choice was emotional, not logical. I offer you everything, I said, feeling the lump in my throat. Not as a favor, but as your right. Our fortune, our name, everything that has been denied to you. I will expose the truth about our father, about abandonment. I will make sure you have the place that has always been rightfully yours by my side. Not as a benefactor, but as my sister. I wasn't offering her a ransom. I was offering her what was rightfully hers, and at the same time, seeking my own redemption. I was willing to destroy my own reputation, the impeccable legacy my father had built for me, if it meant rebuilding the bridge between us. I understood at that moment that my mother's true legacy was not her fortune, but her family, and I had to fight for her, not with money, but with the truth and with my heart. Micro-trigger. Anna was still in shock, but a tremor ran through her body. She opened her backpack and took out a small old notebook, the pages worn and yellowed. He opened it to a specific page and showed it to me. It was a children's drawing made with crayons. 2 stick figures, one larger and one smaller, holding hands under a smiling sun. At the top, an eye and a mana. It was a drawing of her, made years ago, perhaps in an attempt to fill the gap in the family she didn't have. That tore me apart. I imagined myself little drawing something similar for her, for the sister I didn't know I had. The pain of that lost time was almost unbearable. I've always wanted a brother, she whispered, her voice broken, her pride shattered, and her tears now were of pure pain and a dawning hope. I felt so alone. It was the first time she had expressed her vulnerability so directly. At that moment, I was not the billionaire Lucas, the cold strategist, the obedient son. I was just Lucas, a brother desperate for a connection, for a second chance. I approached her slowly, and this time, she didn't back away. You will never be alone again, Anna. I promise. I know I can't erase the past, but I can build a future with you. A future where the truth is the foundation, not the secret. My heart beat to the rhythm of a war drum. The emotional climax unfolded. There was no guarantee of immediate forgiveness, nor of an instant happy ending. There was only my surrender, my vulnerability, my promise. She looked me in the eyes, her expression still filled with sadness, but there was a spark there, a recognition, a hesitation. She said nothing, but held out her hand, And I held it, feeling the fragility and strength of a bond that time and money had been unable to break. The past was there, between us, but the future, for the first time, seemed possible. Anna's hand in mine was a fragile but real link, the first genuine physical contact between us since our lives crossed again. His fingers were cold, but the pressure was firm. There was no explosive joy, no effusive hug. There was only the solemn stillness of two souls recognizing each other after years of darkness. The conversation was long, painful, and full of pauses. Anna expressed all her anger, all her sadness, the abandonment she felt. I listened to her, without interruptions, without excuses, absorbing every word, every tear. I knew she wouldn't forgive me right away, and I didn't expect that. The lost time and pain of a lifetime could not be erased by a single confession, no matter how sincere. Turn 5. Ambiguous conclusion. Justice, in a way, was being served, but with an immense emotional loss. She didn't accept everything at once. She needed space, time to process the devastating truth about her father, about our family, about the life she was denied. But there was a silent recognition, a mutual acceptance that, despite everything, we were brothers. That was the beginning, not the end. She didn't accept all my money nor all my offers. She looked at me and said, "I want to build my own life, Lucas. I want to do it my way, but I want you to be in it." That was the biggest victory I could have received. From that day on, my life began to change. I started to let go of the facades, of the double life. I started to delegate more responsibilities in the company to directors I trusted, freeing up my time for what really mattered. My relationship with Anna became a priority. We started meeting, talking about everything, building a solid foundation for our brotherhood. I spoke to my lawyer and he began the process of rectifying Anna's civil registry so that she could have our family's surname, the name that was denied to her. This wasn't about money. It was about identity, about belonging. It was about giving her the recognition she deserved. We decided together to confront our family's past, to understand the reasons behind our father's decision. It would be a long and difficult journey, full of painful revelations, but for the first time, we were not alone. We were together. I sold some of the luxury cars I'd never driven, donated part of my fortune to genuine charities, and began to live a more authentic life, more connected to the real world, away from the bubble of privilege that defined me. Financial power remained immense, but its meaning had been transformed. It was no longer a tool to hide or control, but a resource I could use for good, with purpose. Anna didn't need my money to live. She needed me. And I, it turned out, needed her much more than I ever imagined. I had found my true wealth, and it was priceless. The last day of school was different. There was no longer the farce, the distance. Anna and I left school side by side, not as the disguised billionaire and the poor scholarship student, but as brother and sister, with a complex history and an uncertain future. There were no more tears of anger or guilt, just acceptance of a new reality. She looked at me with a small but genuine smile. "Thank you, Lucas, for not giving up on us." I held her hand again, feeling the same electricity as our first touch, but now charged with a promise of hope. The family fortune remained immense, untouched, but the true wealth I had found was not in Swiss banks, but in the uncertainty of a look, in the fragile promise of a new beginning. What if, in the end, the biggest secret was love, not money? Comment here. What would you have done? Would you accept this family now, or leave the past behind?